What is up, everybody? It is your man Gabe778 here with your first episode of, I don't know if I should call it Pigskin Empire Radio or the Pigskin Empire Podcast, because this is really just a podcast on the Pigskin Empire Radio channel. But here we are. How are we doing, everybody? It is the year, what is it, 2139? Wow, we're pretty far into the future. We're in the 2100s, almost the 2200s here in a few years. So, I'm your host, Gabe778. I'm going to be bringing you your Pigskin Empire podcast, as I said. And so let's get right into the deal. We have a lot to talk about. And so right now, I'm going to talk about the ECAA first, and then I'm going to segue a little bit into the EFL. Sorry for you ECAA 2 and NAFL people, but I'm probably not going to get into that stuff in this show. Maybe in the next one. But right here, we're a quarter of the way done in the EFL, at least, and for most of the leagues, as mostly teams play 17-ish games in college football. So we're just going to jump right into the standings here. I'm going to just highlight the top of every conference and then go to the top 25. We have Texas taking a big hold of the Big 12 at number 5 right there. Southern Alabama and Georgia Southern are tied at the top of the Sun Belt. The American, we have Central Florida. It says Central Florida is at the top, but they do have a loss, so I'm going to give South Florida the shout out, as well as Central Florida. And Tulane, number 2 ranked Tulane, is on top of their side of that conference, the Conference AAC, the American Conference. MTSU and Western Kentucky both have the same record over there in the Conference USA on the eastern side, as well as Southern Miss does on the western side. They're ranked number 13. We have California still raised up the top there, number 23, 4-0 right there for California on the Pac-12 North, as well as Arizona State and Southern Cal neck and neck on the top of the Southern Division. And now we have the Independents, which we have Army and New Mexico State ranked at the top over there. Number 8, New Mexico State, and number 12, Army. We have San Jose with 3-1 on the west side of the Mountain West. And then we have Arizona State and Wyoming just barely. They're at the top of their conference, and they only have one win. So that's pretty sad right there, as the Mountain West is not doing so hot right now. And then, but on the other hand, the Big Ten, wow, 6 ranked teams. We have Nebraska on the top of their side of the division at 3-0 right there on the West, as well as I'm going to give a shout out to Minnesota, Illinois, and Purdue, all ranked 14, 18, and 7. And then we have Michigan and Ohio State with the same record, conference-wise. They have different records overall. But Michigan's unranked ahead of Ohio State, which is ranked number 2. And then now we're down into the ACC. Louisville is at the top there, tied with Clemson. Clemson has more tiebreaker points. And Louisville is at the top there, still unranked on that side. But Miami, however, ranked number 4. 4-0 for Miami, ranked number 4 on the top of the Coastal Conference, or division, should I say, on the MAC. Historically weak MAC. Actually has the number 1 ranked team, Toledo, right under Northern Illinois. Have to give them a shout out because they're ranked number 1. But number 9, Northern Illinois, number 1, Toledo. So the MAC is actually kind of strong. They're a little top heavy, but still strong in there. Now I'm going to give a little shout out to Akron at number 17 with 2 losses. 2 tough losses, might I add. We have Georgia and Mizzou at the top of the SEC East. Georgia's at number 24 at 4-0, and Mizzou is unranked, also at 4-0. Georgia has only 2 tiebreaker points, but they're ranked number 24, as I said. LSU, Mississippi, and Alabama are all tied in conference rankings. Alabama having had a loss, and Mississippi State not playing in the conference they're ranked. And so that is going to round out the top of the conferences there. And so just to give some people some ranking love, we have number 1 as Toledo, and then number 2, Ohio State. Tied for number 2 is Tulane. Number 4 is going to be Miami. 5, Texas, Southern Cal, Purdue, New Mexico State, Northern Illinois, Georgia Southern, Mississippi, Army at number 12, Southern Miss at 13, Minnesota at 14, South Florida at 15, Nebraska at 16, Akron at 17, Illinois at 18, Baylor at 19, Rutgers, Texas Tech, Mississippi State, Cal, Georgia, and Arizona State rounding out the top 25. Oddly enough, Georgia and California actually have first place votes, even though they're pretty lowly ranked. It's interesting. I've never seen teams so lowly ranked have first place votes. So there is that end. And so now we're just going to go and talk a little bit about the top games for today, and then I'm going to talk about some of the games that happened yesterday. And so right now we're going to go into it. Arizona State and Rutgers is the first big game of the day against two ranked teams. Number 20 Rutgers is playing number 25 Arizona State. Rutgers is coming in with only one win, still ranked number 20, but only one win. Georgia at number 24 is playing 22 Mississippi State. That is going to be a pretty big game right there. Two pretty good users playing against each other. We have Georgia Southern and Alabama. Number 10 ranked Georgia Southern is playing an unranked Alabama, who is 4-0 right now. And then we have rounding out the games, number 5 Texas playing number 19 Baylor. And so these are all games are pretty interesting. Only 3 of the games are actually conference matchups, so they're going to be pretty good in telling who's going to round out the top of their conferences. Right now, each of these games is featuring a team at the top of their conference, Arizona State being one of them, and Georgia being the other one, Georgia Southern for their conference, and then Texas, which I don't see Texas losing to Baylor, but what do I know? I don't really know who's coaching at Baylor, but they are ranked number 19, so they could give them a run for their money. So we're just going to recap some of the games that happened in week 4. And right here, the first game was a formerly undefeated team in Wisconsin playing Michigan. They got absolutely demolished by, Wisconsin got demolished by Michigan, 64-13. Rutgers, who was ranked, I don't know what they were ranked yesterday, but they were ranked playing Army, and Army just barely beat Rutgers 50-19. A pretty huge win for Army right there. Nebraska and Illinois. Nebraska bouncing back after having a loss the day before, playing Illinois, who is a pretty highly ranked team, and they actually came out with an 18-point win, bringing Illinois all the way down to the rank of 18. We have Miami and FSU. Miami being the favorite, of course. FSU still being undefeated, though. Miami just puts the hurt on him, 44-20. And then we have probably the best game of the day, San Jose against Mississippi State, two kind of top teams in both of their respective conferences. It came down to the wire. It was tied at one point with very few time left, but then San Jose threw an interception, and Mississippi State got the field goal to win the game, and that gave them a win 38-35. And then the Battle of the Jeweled Shillelagh, Notre Dame and Southern Cal. Both teams went in undefeated. Southern Cal prevailed. Not much that they could do there. Southern Cal just hasn't beat. They're also at the top of their respective conference. They're probably going to win. They were the national champions last year, I believe. Not 100% certain. Probably should do more stat checking before I do something like this, but oh well. So, gonna highlight some of the league leaders right here. The number 1 passer in the ECAA is Hubert Gibson with 1,670 yards passing. He's having a pretty good year. If I could actually pull up his stats, so far this year, he is 77 of 166, which is actually in a pretty abysmal 46%, 16 touchdowns, 2 picks. Michigan's still not ranked after 4 wins. Hubert Rupert, an interesting name out of Northwestern, has the most rushing yards with 587, just eking out DeAndre Lim with 585, and San Diego State's William Hawley with 582. So just 5 yards separates all 3 of them. But Northwestern's guy is going to get the nod. He has 119 carries, 587 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which is a pretty good 4.9 yard average. Not terrible. He's getting kind of a lot of carries in 4 games. 119 carries is pretty decent. And so then we're going to go to receiving, which we have James Owens out of Southern Miss, way ahead of the pack. 917 receiving yards. He even has 74 receptions so far in the season, so he's on pace to have a lot of receptions. He is a senior, so he'll probably, I don't know how good he is evaluation-wise, but maybe he'll get drafted just for stats alone. The top of the tackle leaderboard, we have Calvin Mays from Syracuse. He's doing pretty good. He has 65 tackles, 18 assists, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack one PBU, one pick, two forced fumbles, no touchdowns. He's a junior out of Syracuse. Watch out for that man. He seems to be all over the field. On the sack column, we have Muhammad Pruitt out of Missouri. Missouri is at the top of their division, tied with, I believe, Georgia. 40 tackles, 26 assists, 10 tackles for losses, 5 missed tackles, 10 sacks. Of course, leading the nation, 2 forced fumbles and 1 fumble recovery. Only a sophomore. This guy had 138 tackles last year and 5 sacks. So he's already doubled his sack total from last year. And he was just a freshman last year. And then, of course, the interception leader is actually going to be a three-piece by Illinois, Clemson, and Notre Dame. And right here, I'm just going to go into their page. Alfonso Navarro out of Illinois has 4 interceptions. He also has 4 pass breakups and 1 touchdown. And Bruce Lucas out of Clemson also has 4 interceptions, 1 pick 6 on the season. And then Gabino Martinez has 4 interceptions and also a pick 6. And he had 2 pick 6s last year, so might want to look for a playmaker like him if you're a pro coach. So that's going to round out all of the league leaders in statistics. And so that is it for the stats. And so now I'm just going to go into a portion of the show here where I just purely talk about up-and-coming coaches that I have noticed who are on the grind, doing better. Maybe some of the older coaches also, and just like the state of how things are being played right now in terms of all of PSC. Because people are really quick to say that this place is dead, and it's certainly true mostly, but it's still blossoming in some areas where new coaches are coming in and doing pretty well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And so some of the up-and-coming coaches, I have Fusion 82 at, I believe, he's the Georgia coach right now. He's 4-0 at Georgia. Georgia's ranked number 24. He recently just legacied it to his Lamar Browning coach, which he is doing pretty good. And so, yeah, he was the coach at Stanford, and Stanford did pretty good. I believe they made the mains, I want to say at least once while he was there. He compiled a pretty good record. Let's look at his page. He compiled a record at Stanford of 84-21 and a complete college record of 216-105. So, I mean, not to say that he's not new, but he's newer than most of the good coaches that are doing right now. But he's still doing pretty good, in my opinion. He's still kind of new, learning things, but it seems like he's kind of got things really well set up for himself at Georgia. And he's doing good right now. Georgia's ranked number 24, so he's doing pretty good over there. I also have the Mississippi State coaches doing pretty good over there. I believe that they just beat San Jose. And, yeah, they just edged out San Jose 38-35. We have Marquise Breedlove. As long as he can stay there, Darrell Potties, I think that Mississippi State can do some pretty big things. They lost pretty big to Purdue the week before and beat San Jose State pretty big. So this game against Georgia that they're going to have today is going to be a pretty good indication of how well he's doing overall. You know, I love my man Marquise, but sometimes the only thing holding some of the younger coaches back is just the amount that they talk to other people. Sometimes they spend a little bit too much time focusing on things that are not football related. And that can really hurt sometimes, because right here I'm just going to be a big advocate for young up-and-coming coaches. And he is one of the certainly younger ones that are doing pretty good. And so that's just me giving him a little shout out right there. Mississippi State number 22, I believe, in the rankings. Another one, and most of these new coaches aren't that new, but they're new enough for me to give recognition, like D. Robocop at Michigan. Like, he's done a pretty good job for himself. He was the old Mississippi State coach, and now he finds himself at Michigan. He had a pretty good run at Oklahoma, where he went 41-12. He had a few pro stints before that, but then before that it was marginally unsuccess for him, and now he seems to be finding his footing. As long as he could stay at Michigan, I think that he could find a pretty good job. He has a pretty good rival in Ohio State. So when you have someone who's new and you stick to a certain job that you have, and a good one at that, because it's Michigan, and you have a rival like Ohio State, a big dog like Ohio State, it could be pretty easy for you to kind of get yourself into gear. Um, as far as coaching goes, I've never watched a Michigan game. I've never watched Oklahoma when he was there, but it seems like he's getting his footing down pretty good. He hasn't really beaten anyone huge. Wisconsin was undefeated until they played him, and so there was that. And but yeah, so we'll just have to see how he does when he plays a team like Minnesota, Illinois, Rutgers, which he plays 3 weeks in a row. Minnesota, Illinois, Rutgers. Then he plays Penn State, who's 0-4. Indiana, also 0-4. And then he plays Maryland. So gets a pretty bumpy part of his schedule. And then he gets a little bit easier. He plays Ohio State, of course. And so we'll see how that goes. But I'm really rooting for him over there. I think that's it as far as that goes in terms of up-and-coming coaches. You don't really have to be new to be up-and-coming. I guess I shouldn't say that. Some other notable up-and-comers is the Army coach. He's been pretty good for a while. I believe that this is Siafu. Yeah, Siafu's been pretty good. 91-13. Hasn't really broken off any huge runs yet, but he's really just a few plays here and there off, and I think that Siafu can do pretty good. So look for Army to deal some damage. They just destroyed Rutgers 50-19, so they're gonna have some work to do down there in Rutgers. And so now we're going to talk about the state of the game. I realize people are saying that the game is dying. I've seen some old heads pop in to chat recently, like Hobbs and Gavin, the old mods, and Manjai was just in the forums. And so, and you have all these people that are leaving, like Inex and Lockdown, and all these people leaving. But then you have all these people coming up. Like, I was just talking about some pretty high scoring games, like Mississippi State and San Jose. Those guys are doing pretty good. You have Ole Miss doing pretty good over there. Southern Cal is still whipping it with their new coach Bob Frog, who's been here for a while, and he's definitely not an up and comer. He's already there. But so a lot of people are pretty quick to say, well, yeah, the game's dying, and yeah, the percentages of the field coaches might be low, but there's a reason for that. So as long as we can get the rep requirement either lowered or completely removed, it'll probably always be like that. I don't think that there's any reason. I don't think it's that the game's broken. I really think it's more just like there's a lot of misconceptions and confusions between people who use the old site rather than the new one. And so that just goes to show how, people just... I think that some people are just spending a little bit too much time complaining about the game, but rather than actually enjoying it, because the sim is actually not as bad as it has been in the past by a wide margin, and people need to enjoy that because it is a pretty good sim. Even though it might be hard to call in the sim, it is still a good sim, and so there is that. And so there was my brief state of the PSE intermission before I talk about the pro leagues, and I'm going to go through the standings. And this is more of an informational show rather than like a prediction show, because I don't really know a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot of coaches. My knowledge is just so minute right now that I'm just pretty much just saying who's at the top of every division and going on from there. I don't have any opinions. I don't know if anybody's good or not. I haven't watched anybody. And so, so for the pro standings, you have New York. The New York Jets at 4-0. They're ahead of their division by 3 whole games, and their net points is huge. 213 points for to 71 against. It seems like they're a pretty high hitter right there. Then you have Pittsburgh at the top of theirs at 3-1. Houston on top of the AFC South at 4-0. You also have a shout out to Jacksonville, who's 3-1. They're doing pretty good. Las Vegas Raiders, baby, 4-0 right there in their division, leading the league over there. And then that's the AFC. If the playoffs started today, which is kind of ridiculous to say, but still, it would be Houston would be the number 1 seed, with New York being number 2, Las Vegas at number 3, and Pittsburgh at number 4. And then you have Jacksonville would be the 5th seed. And then it would be between Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Kansas City for the 6th seed. So I don't know how the tiebreakers would go over there. So that would just be if the playoffs started after 4 games. And now you have the NFC East, New Jersey at 3-1, with nobody, kind of really fighting them. Chicago 4-0 in the North after Green Bay just had their dominance. Now Chicago's having their time; they're 4-0. Carolina and New Orleans are leading their divisions at 4-0 respectively. And then you have Los Angeles at 3-1. And if the playoffs started today, I believe you would have New Orleans at number 1, Chicago at number 2, Los Angeles at number 3, or New Jersey at number 3 and Los Angeles at number 4. And then you would have Carolina at 5. And it looks like we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-way tie for the 6th seed. So the NFC's kind of open. 2-2 Philadelphia, Dallas, Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. And so there's pretty wide open for the playoffs over there in the NFC side, more so than the AFC side. And we're going to talk about some of the games that are on tap for today. Let's just go to the schedules page. So right now we have not very many marquee matchups. We have 3-1 Jacksonville playing 2-2 Tennessee today. You have 2-2 Minnesota playing 2-2 Green Bay. And you also have 4-0 New Orleans playing 2-2 Tampa Bay. And then you also have 2-2 teams in Cincinnati and Cleveland playing. The undefeated Vegas is playing the 1-4 Broncos. And you also have the 3-1 New Jersey playing 2-2 Dallas, and 4-0 Chicago playing 2-2 Detroit. And I can't really make predictions because I don't really know who's coaching at any of these teams. And so I'm just going to go all the way to the stats. I'm going to assume that the people who are leading their divisions right now are probably going to win their divisions because the talent disparity is so wide. And so we're just going to go into the league leaders. We have Keyshawn Carr in Jacksonville, number 1 in passing yards. He is 123 for 229. Wow. That means in 4 games he has over 50 passes per game. And so for 1,567 yards, 11 touchdowns and 8 picks. Still doing good over there in Jacksonville. Tyreek Chaney in Dallas is the league leader in rushing over there. He's got 115 carries for 592 yards and 2 touchdowns. Only 2 touchdowns. Does have a lot of broken tackles, though. There's a lot of people up there in the rushing yards. We have Reggie Purdue with 584. Freddie Duncan, shout out to you, for 554. Gerald Boyd in Kansas City with 524. And Matthew Cather at 514. So 80 yards separates the top 5 rushers, which you could say is a lot. But you could also say that that's very little because that could be one big run. You also have Alfonso Rodriguez for Tampa Bay, way ahead of the pack in receiving yards, 870 yards. He has 69 catches, 870 yards, and only 1 touchdown for the 2-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they're doing good. I mean, they've had some pretty close games. They're 2-2 over there in Tampa. 65 tackles for Frank Smith in Minnesota. He has 65 tackles, 37 assists, 7 missed tackles, 5 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries. Doing good over there in Minnesota, that really tight division over there. In sacks, the sack leader only has 6, whereas in the ECAA he had 10. So he has 26 tackles of Reggie Meadows, meant to say his name. Reggie Meadows, 26 tackles, 8 tackles for losses, 6 sacks, 1 fumble recovery. Doing good over there in Cleveland. And then the interception leader, wow, 10 picks. I want to know the quarterback who threw this guy his 10 picks. Reginald Yarworth, 30 tackles, 8 missed tackles, 9 pass breakups, 10 interceptions. Still no touchdowns, no forced fumbles. But wow, 10 interceptions. He had 10 picks last year and 7 in his first year. This guy's on pace to be on a roll, a huge roll. in his career, and if he keeps that up, he will do pretty good. And so that is pretty much going to wrap it up for everything that I've got to talk about. So this was pretty much just like a test run to see how everything would go. I know I kind of went through everything kind of quickly, mainly because there was just not many talking points. But if anybody wants to maybe potentially be a guest or maybe like a caller on this kind of thing, just hit me up. I'm on Discord. I'm in some of the Discord chats. If not, you could just comment down below. I'll probably post this on YouTube or something like that. So yeah, if you want to guest host, and if you don't know what the site is, it's pigskinemempire.com. I'll probably post a link somewhere down in the description below. And so yeah, if you want to be a guest, you want to talk, you want to, or even if you want to be a co-host or something like that for a whole show, why not? Just hit me up somewhere. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. I'll probably do a mid-season show, and then maybe I'll do a draft show, depending on how much people like stuff like this. So yeah, thank you guys all for listening, and I will see you guys when I see you guys.